Humans are naturally cooperative. That's what makes us special. That's how we survived. And, there's a feeling of erosion right now and fear of, sort of those end of times discussions, which is really unhealthy because we aren't feeling connected as human beings. And the more we can work back that muscle and reconnect, the more we'll feel hopeful, the more things won't bother us as much. We won't be yelling at people on the road or screaming at, customer service, agents, or we'll be able to fly without fights. Like, these are the things that we need to work on because we did
For sure.
let them atrophy.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and it is part 2 of a great series with author and workplace happiness expert Jennifer Moss. In this episode, she shares how altruism is the key ingredient to workplace happiness, why positive gossip builds psychological safety, and simple mindset shifts that can create a ripple effect of well-being across your team. All right, let's get to that conversation right now. Your book is probably filled with all sorts of great applications to help ourselves be more happy at work. Whether you're the leader or the person that's coming in and being led. What are some of those big nuggets that people, if you're not doing this, you really should start today? We talked about one of them, which is just have, get to know people, sit down, have a conversation. How can, how do you need help? How can you help me? How can I help you? Type of thing. But what else? What are some of those other big ones in your book?
Well, when you look at the really big research study that was done at the Oxford Wellbeing Institute, and they looked at all of the well-being programs that are out there because, wellness and well-being is really blown up. And there's lots of tactics and technology and tools to increase happiness. And we're seeing actually, most countries are declining in their happiness scores across the board. And especially in, US and Canada, we're seeing that happen when you really look at what matters to people. It's typically the hygiene. And, I wrote this in several of my books, but I love Herzberg's 2-factor theory of hygiene and motivation. It's this idea that you want to just get the table stakes stuff, taken care of. Like, make sure people feel psychologically safe, that they can speak up, that there's an environment where, critical feedback is healthy, that, you're making sure you're giving enough positive feedback. So if you provide some suggestions for change, that people feel okay with that people feel like they can dissent, that it's okay if they say, hey, I think we should think differently about this. In a lot of places, especially where it is kind of mission critical, if you don't have the ability to say that you feel worried about the outcome of something, then there can be catastrophic results. You want to, do things like make it so that you're being altruistic. This is the thing that came out of the Oxford Wellbeing research that I loved, is the one thing that worked. And basically all that other stuff wasn't working. Like resiliency training does not work. Calling out bias, when we talk about DI, that's not really working either. Things like the technology where you listen to rain for 15 seconds or telling someone to breathe or, take a nap. I mean, all of that is very tone deaf. When we look at what really is the best way to improve happiness and well-being, it's altruism. So benevolent behaviors across an organization has really huge impacts. And that's just kind of like one of the things that the research found, not in this research, but other research, is spreading positive gossip, like just talking nicely behind other people's backs, and it doesn't need to get to that person, but people feel and perceive that when they go in organizations where people are just speaking kindly of each other and doing altruistic things for each other, that you perceive, well, that's how people are feeling and talking about me. So now I feel safe and I can speak up and I can innovate and people trust me. I feel more confident in my own, my own thoughts and ideas. It's really about just kind of putting other people ahead of yourself, removing ego, having more turn takings in meetings. So making sure that everyone is getting a chance to speak and be heard, making people feel like they can be authentic. It's really based around just a benevolent behavior. And that's the one important thing that I said. Don't choose happiness, because choosing happiness is a privilege for yourself that we don't always have. There's war, there's climate change, there's pandemic. We can't always choose to be happy every day. That's not always in our, ability, but we can choose happiness for others and we can choose kindness. And so just choosing kindness will inevitably make you happier because you're doing that.
We'll get back to the interview right after this word from our sponsor. As a solo accountant or bookkeeper, your business is your livelihood. But have you ever wondered what would happen if life threw you a curveball? What if you couldn't work tomorrow? Who would step in to manage your clients and keep your income flowing? That's where Succession Security comes in. Think of it as insurance that pays out in labor. If an unexpected emergency strikes, whether it's an illness, accident, or even a family crisis, Succession Security ensures your business keeps running. They step in to manage operations, communicate with clients, and protect everything you've built. Don't leave your business to chance. Be proactive and safeguard your future. Learn more and start your business continuity plan today at successionsecurity.com, because when life happens, your business shouldn't stop. Succession Security, your partner in peace of mind. Thank you for hearing from our sponsor. Now let's get back to the interview. It's pretty cool when you think of how simple that is, just to be generous with your words, generous with your actions, and doing a little bit of that every day, how much that can change your environment, and then on it goes. It's a strategy that I think every single listener can take from this episode and take into not your work life, but every part of your life, your relationships, your family, your friends. And it's so interesting, the I forget what you called it about gossip, positive gossip. What was it called?
Spreading positive gossip. Yeah.
Positive gossip. I mean, you just think about the impacts on when you're speaking highly of someone else, versus speaking lowly of someone else, what's that listener thinking? It's like, what are they saying about me? Right?
Yes.
And so if you're saying good things about other people, that person's going to think naturally that this person probably says nice things about me. Of course, unless they have a negative bias where they're like, well, they speak nicely of others, but they're probably not speaking about me at all.
Right.
It's probably...
You do have some of those people
That's
in
right.
a group, but for the most part, and this is research that I'm quoting, and it was really great because they had control groups and then they had this intervention, and it was incredible because they found that people onboarded almost 3 times faster because they just were in an environment where they felt very safe very quickly. And it's all this perception. I love this one intervention kind of experiment that they did in the World Happiness Report. You know how they come up with the happiest countries. And I used to be on the council, but in the last couple of years, they did this lost wallet experiment. And, there was throughout North America and around the world, they would place these wallets, and then they would ask people to perceive how likely their wallet would be to be returned. In North America, we found about 23% of people said that they believed their wallets would be returned. But guess how many wallets were returned? 80% of the wallets were returned.
Wow.
And so we have to believe that people are good because we think people are bad right now and that there's all this negativity and there's all this hyperbole, but it's our misunderstanding and our misinformation about how good people are that's making us less happy. But if we believed and trusted people, that's why Finland is always winning happiest country, in the world, because they trust, almost all of them trust their wallet's going to be returned. They have like high trust in each other. And that's why they're the happiest country in the world. So imagine that inside your organization, people all thinking that everyone's out to get them versus believing everyone's out to tell them what a good job they're doing. It totally changes not just your perception, but your reality of happiness.
It's fascinating and really interesting. I've been I'm approaching my 1-year anniversary of a zero news diet where I don't read any news, right? At very little. Now, I have looked at news. I can count on one hand of where I've gone and searched out news. It's typically, something, I think it was the floods in Spain because I have a friend there. Some other interesting things that happened in the news that I just needed to know. But other than that, I don't read news. I don't go to news sites, none of it for 1 year. And I am seeing a shift. Now, I am oblivious. There are some pros and cons to this. I can't have intelligent conversations about politics, But I find that whatever I say is just about as accurate as if I was, right?
It really, there's no right answer because there's no right information.
That's right. But I do notice my view of the world has shifted dramatically. Like I've gone back to small town. Like I know what's going on in my town and around my neighborhood. And I get news from other people. They tell me the news and I get their gist of it and the information and their take. And it's similar to the line of if I couldn't trust everybody, well, I'm not feeding my mind with the negativity of the world that's often in news and in creating a bias around my view of what's going on in the world. So I love that idea of like look for the things that enable you to trust people and know and just look for that you're going to find that you can trust people. And if something happens where you can, it's like, it's this different way of thinking that has you have a better experience of life. So if you didn't get your wallet returned, maybe they needed the money more than you, right?
Yeah.
It's just like shifting to that kind of an idea, because really at the end of the day, you can't control it anyways. So it's very interesting. And you can imagine in any organization, if everyone did a little bit of that, the amount of impact that it would have. Because if someone's just sitting there and they're having a good day and it's like, no one's going to steal my wallet and, it's going to be a more enjoyable experience. Like going to a party where you can't trust anybody. Do you want to be at that party? No, get the heck out.
You want an abundance mindset versus a deficit mindset, like believing that things are abundant, that, you have what you need. And that's really living a grateful life is, focusing on what you have versus what you don't have. And so I think, one of the things that is healthy for us to start practicing, because we have lost it. We went into survival mode, and you couldn't even hug your own mother if she wasn't in your circle for a period of time. There was a lot of kind of decaying of our social trust that we have to build back up, because humans are naturally cooperative. That's what makes us special. That's how we survived. And, there's a feeling of erosion right now and fear of, sort of those end of times discussions, which is really unhealthy because we aren't feeling connected as human beings. And the more we can work back that muscle and reconnect, the more we'll feel hopeful, the more things won't bother us as much. We won't be yelling at people on the road or screaming at, customer service, agents, or we'll be able to fly without fights. Like these are the things that we need to work on, because we did let them atrophy. And that takes work. We sort of take it for granted that humans are humans, but we need to work out the muscle again. And then we're going to see what happens is like there's a shift and a tipping point, and things start to just feel better. And then we all feel happier because of that feeling.
It was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I went through a bout myself where I was just like angry at traffic. Absolutely angry. My son, driving him around to hockey and all over the place. So lots of lots of driving. And of course, my son's watching me, and he's watching the reaction, and he's seeing all of this. And I told a good friend and mentor of mine, and he's like, they're just doing the best they can.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
oh, yeah. And he said, and so are you. You're just doing the best you can. And so I told my son was in the car when he was on speakerphone, and we were talking about the traffic and whatnot, because it was during a conversation of where I was like, oh, that traffic by. He's like, they're just doing the best you can. So now my son reminds me, if I ever do get upset about it, it's like, Dad, they're just doing the best they can. And it's like, well, it's not good enough.
I love
that. I say to him sometime as a joke, but it helped me. I tell you, that one context shift helped me just go, they're just doing the best they can, and so am I. And if I lose it sometimes, I'm just doing the best that I can. But most of the time I don't, because I'm like, who cares? Why am I letting my life be dictated by the way another person drives?
Yes. It's also, we have to, I kind of think of who loses with being angry. No, that other person has no idea that you're angry at them. You're shouting and swearing at them from your, behind your
That's right.
steering
That's
wheel.
right.
They're
I'm
in
the one
another
suffering
car.
over here.
Right.
Yeah.
But in general, that's it across the board. I mean, the more angry we are, the less we're experiencing quality of life, and the less forgiving, the less tolerant we are. Again, that always impacts our quality of life. So, it behooves us. It's good for us to let go of the things that don't serve us. And so there again, like the human connection, especially in the workplace, it's like, how long do I want to hold on to this frustration with this coworker? Or, even just with generational divides, there's all this anger towards groups, and we're labeling certain groups. And, we have to think, like, the more open we are, the more likely we'll close gaps between us. And that means letting go and, finding different outlets, doing things that like media diets that can help you, and focus on constructive journalism. Like maybe focus on reading some things that are just about learning. The social psychology handbook was finally released. Normally it's $250 and it's, this big. Well, they made it totally open source this year so everyone can learn about the benefits of healthier social psychological behaviors. And it's like making focusing on reading and learning about society and engaging your curiosity and move away from that breaking news environment is really healthy for us right now.
Really healthy. It really highlights that if you're going to put energy somewhere, it's like if we can invest in our mind, it's like, what else do you got, really? Where else can you put your investment? It's one of the best places you could.
Yeah.
And that impacts yourself. It impacts the people around you, whether you're running a business, you're working in a business. So it's really a great reminder of that. And this is a great opportunity with your book, because what I always like to say, I love having great guests on the show, and especially authors like yourself who have great content, science-based content that can help turn the dial in a certain area. This one particularly, building a workplace of people that are happy to be there. What a great gift to get for your clients, a listener. Make sure your content's like, I don't think that you don't have a happy workplace, but you can always be happier.
I'm
right?
not saying that you're not happy.
I'm not saying anything with this book here, but it's a great book. You should read it. But this is one of those books. If you can help someone have their organization be more happy, it's going to lead to a lot of benefits in their organization. And bookkeepers work with leaders of organizations. So it's always one of those really great connections that I always like to point out and remind our listener that if you are going to gift, which is a great idea for clients you love, pick a great book like this to do that, and do it often. And that comes back to what you said about doing nice things for people. It makes you happy and it makes them happy.
There's nothing more enjoyable than being in a drive-through, getting a coffee and buying a coffee for someone behind me, or being in line at a wherever, Starbucks or somewhere, and just like doing a nice thing and paying for someone's bill, or, it's like a cup of coffee goes a long way. And those little tiny hacks just make you feel so good. And you don't even need to know if that person's happy about it. You just know in your heart that they're going to be surprised. And those acts of kindness, those acts of altruism, they're selfish and selfless at the same time because of the kind of like helper's high that it gives you. And the more we do that, like we're going to spread that contagion. So we have to look at ourselves as sort of like ground zero or like patient zero of happiness.
It's funny that you mentioned the drive-thru because as you were talking about that, I was thinking of a friend of mine who had an experience like that where someone had bought him someone bought his order at the drive-thru. And then he did it a little while later and through happenstance heard the impact it had. I gotta ask him again for the exact specifics of the story, but he heard about the person who he had gifted it to through the grapevine, heard how it had impacted that person. I don't know if they told the person at the tail. I forget. I'll ask him, but it changed their day. They were having an incredibly bad day, a horrible day, and it was like they just needed to see that humanity was there, left in the world, and that was that moment. And it's just like really kind of that interesting, hard to explain, but wonderful to hear about story. And if we can do a little bit of that ourselves all the time, or when we can, it doesn't have to be big. It can be anything, but just smiling at somebody walking up the street can make a difference. And so it's a bit of generosity and it helps both parties.
It is. I love that you shared that story because we tested this once in where we were working, and we went into a Balzac's. It's a like a Starbucks, and we went in and we bought the person behind us order. We came back maybe 2 hours later, and the barista there said that it didn't stop. The person bought the person's behind for 90 minutes.
Wow.
So you had not just one person impacted, but one after the other, and they're going out in the world, in your community, less likely to be angry, feeling like more of a belief in society. And that's how those social contagions spread. But you don't realize people behind you will also think differently. They might let that person in instead of cutting them off. And there's a butterfly effect to all of it. And it's pretty magical.
Really is. Really is. So the book, tell us a little bit about the book. Tell us a little bit if people wanted to learn more about the book or learn more about you, your website, whatever things that you have on that would be valuable to our listener. Please let us know about that.
Yeah, so you can get Unlocking Happiness at Work, the second edition, anywhere, Amazon, anywhere books are sold. And but on my site, jennifer-moss.com, pretty easy. There's lots of good, blog posts. I write for Harvard Business Review and other media outlets. And there's lots of blog posts and articles on there that talk about what we're talking about, but maybe a bit more bite-sized. And then, the other books that I've written. And and just to connect with me if you want to chat.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. What a great conversation. What a great topic to talk about. And it's certainly been enjoyable. And on behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for your generosity in coming on the show.
Thank you so much. You definitely made my day happier. So thanks for your part in that today.
What a terrific chat with Jennifer Moss. Her insights on workplace happiness, altruism, and building a psychologically safe team were both inspiring and really practical. And with that, we wrap the two-part series and another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.